Good evening from the governor's office at the state capitol in Hartford. I'm Chief Capitol Correspondent Mark Davis, and today and yesterday we've been hearing from many of you on WTNH.com. Over 1,000 questions for the governor on the situation in state government. Governor Dannel Malloy delivered his budget address this afternoon. The highlights: concessions, taxes, and spending.
I don't make these suggestions to be antagonistic, just realistic. The alternative to $2 billion figure would require us to completely shred the safety net for our fellow citizens. And it would require us to lay off thousands of state workers. Asking virtually everyone to share a slightly higher tax burden is the only way that we can ensure that no one group of people bears a much higher burden.
And Governor Dannel Malloy is joining us live. Thanks for inviting us into your office. Thanks for doing this.
It's great to have you here, and this is your office.
Thank you, Governor. I get to ask you questions every day. Now we're going to get to some of the, obviously we can't get to all 1,000, but there is, and there was more than 1,000. But there is a common thread through most of them. So let's go to the first question from WTNH.com. This is from Danielle in Shelton. She says, I am a local writer and mother, and I am perplexed as to why you would propose increasing taxes on gasoline when the cost of gasoline in Connecticut is already much higher than the national average and the surrounding states.
Well, you know, there's a problem in Connecticut, and that is that we have underinvested in our transportation system, and in fact there is a deficit in the transportation fund. This is really to address that deficit. Otherwise, we'd have to stop doing any repairs to our highways and our bridges. And many of our bridges are already receiving a D grade when it comes to safety. And many of our roads are in tough shape. And listen, I'm a guy who grew up in Lower Fairfield County. And I'm just tired of picking up a paper and reading of some young person dying on an entrance or an exit to Merritt Parkway because it hasn't been modernized or the angle hasn't been changed. So these are investments in the future of our roadways, our bridges. It is public safety dollars, and it's terrible to have to ask anybody to pay additional money. But you know what? Connecticut has just not made the level of investment that we need to make. It's one of the reasons that we don't have job growth in this state. We've not seen job growth in this state for 22 years, and one of those reasons, a contributing factor, is the state of transportation in Connecticut.
But if I may follow up on Danielle's question, you've been saying all along you want to make Connecticut more competitive. How can we be more competitive if our gasoline prices, as soon as you hit the border from another state, are higher than anywhere else you can go?
Well, you know, I think that's a fair question as well, and I think that we should be taking a look at it, including the Attorney General's office, and making sure that we're not being gouged, quite frankly. Our gas tax is 16 cents less than it used to be, and all of that came out of the fund for transportation. So this is a small portion of that money going back in to make sure that we have the dollars to be eligible for the federal programs that will allow us to do the construction on our roads that we need to do.
All right, let's go to another question from our viewers and web users. This is from Robert in Hamden. He says, income tax up again. Tax discounts get eliminated and you raise the sales tax. With a down economy and a near 9% unemployment rate, how does the middle class stop from becoming the new poor?
Well, you know, what we've done is affected many things a little bit. And since I don't know what Robert's income is, it's hard for me to estimate what his additional obligations would be. The biggest factor might be that he'll lose part of a tax rebate for his property taxes if he owns his own condominium.
The $500 tax credit.
But let's just examine that one for a second. What we have been doing as a state and giving that credit the way we've been giving it is basically writing an $80 million check to the federal government. So we take our tax dollars and we transfer it to the federal government because of the way that program was structured, which in essence raises everyone's income.
Well, because you pay federal income tax on the $500.
So
But you still, most people are no higher than a 30% bracket, so.
Most people are not. But just when you're having trouble understanding this, what we're trying to do, in a time that we have a $3.5 billion total deficit, if you put transportation back in there, this is not the time to be giving the federal government $80 million of our tax dollars, number one. Number two, it is part of the system by which we'll get this state healthy again and reverse the trend that has been staged over a 22-year period of time,
Yes, but
in which
Robert
we're,
loses
in which
the
we're one
balance.
of only 2 states that has failed to grow jobs. I'm sorry?
Robert loses the balance.
Sure
Or
he
whatever
does.
the difference
Sure he
is.
does.
Yeah.
And that will go to making sure that we aren't in a deficit situation. What's the option? That we should borrow another $1 billion to cover operating expenses, or that we should close every nursing home in the state and put every sick person out on the street, or that we shouldn't admit additional people to hospitals? This is a balancing act that I've been asked to perform because our state has been badly run for a long period of time. I was hired to tell the truth and to set the record straight and to get this state back on the road to job recovery, and that's what I intend to do.
Let's go to another question. This is from William in Milford. What are your plans to roll back these tax increases once the budget crisis is past us?
Well, you know, I think that's a great question. And you will note that in my speech, and since you were there, you might remember, I'm not a person who says that we should spend every dollar that we have or every penny that we have simply because we have it. And if there are opportunities, and I certainly hope that there will be opportunities to roll some of these things back, I'll be the first one to lead. I believe that Connecticut failed to establish what its means were a number of years ago. I've established what our means are. We're going to live within them. We're not actually spending more taxpayer dollars in the general fund this year than we did, or next year than we did in the current year. So we're not going to spend more money. We're not going to borrow money to cover operating expenses. We're not giving early retirement plans to people who have big salaries already. And we're asking for pretty big sacrifice on the part of the workforce, the state workforce.
Let me follow up on William's question. If you want to keep everything so slim, why does your budget have a built-in $800 million surplus, as the Republicans are complaining?
It actually a built-in $800 million surplus. There are some dollars that may be left in the cookie jar at the end of each fiscal year. But let's put it in perspective. Right now we have a $3.5 billion deficit. And one of the reasons we have this deficit, and one of the reasons that's different for me than the last governor, is they took every single dollar down to the penny out of that cookie jar. Every $1.4 billion that had been set aside for a rainy day, they drained it all. That's why we're in this problem. And so that was given to me. So, you know, would I like to see some money set aside for a rainy day fund? Sure. Should we budget down to 1 cent and then end up with a deficit and then end up with another tax increase? I don't believe we should do that. Let me assure you, we are not going to spend beyond our means.
We have time for one more question in this segment. Okay, this is from Kevin in Wallingford. How is raising taxes going to help the unemployment rate? How is it going to create jobs to the state and bring jobs to the state?
Well, first of all, again, it's a good and fair question. The way it's going to bring jobs to the state is that the business community now understands that we are serious about wrestling with our problems, with our fiscal problems. Because what we've done for the last number of years is borrow money to cover operating expenses, which you should never be allowed to do, in my opinion, as a state. And then secondly, we drew down every single dollar in the rainy day fund. So what are the options? Driving up unemployment by laying off more people, raising people's property taxes, which is really the most regressive form of taxation we have in the state of Connecticut. If I didn't close that $270 million gap in the ECS, Educational Cost Sharing Grant Formula, his taxes, if he's a property owner in his community, because I recognize the community, and they get a pretty good chunk of money for the ECS, would go up dramatically.
All right, one more question in this segment. This is from, we'll have to take a break. We'll get to more questions coming up.